We have a special privilege today of spending time talking with my good friend, Chris Chambers, and Sarah, his wife. Chris, we've had a number of years together, or we've known each other, and it's been quite the journey, So I thought that just for the people who don't know you, we might just kind of start a little bit from the beginning and just go from there, just the two of you just talking, and we'll see where God takes us today. Okay? Good. All right, so this is just going to be a dialogue between all of us, so we'll see what comes of it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's your family, and who's here today, and that kind of stuff.
Well, so there's me, Chris. There's my wife, Sarah. My daughter, JL, is here, but I don't know where. In the back. She doesn't know. There's no way she's going to raise her hand.
She's the one not raising her hand.
She's the one that's not raising her hand. So everyone else raise your hand. And then you know exactly who JL is. My son, Jonah, is actually, he's on the water polo team at Bend High, and so he's at a tournament today. Somewhere in Oregon, I'm not sure where. So, but my mother and father are both here. Again, they will not raise their hands.
The very back row, right here, the one that people are pointing to.
Yeah. The one with the red afro is my mom. The one without hair is my father. So, I love them both dearly. You wouldn't know it, but I do. And then my mother-in-law and sister-in-law are also here today. They're not going to.
It's probably your family. Let's say in the back row. Okay.
Back Row Baptists. That's they perfected it. Mom and Dad have been here for close to 20 years, if not longer, and they have rarely moved past that back row, and it's caused them physical pain every time. And it's just the way they are. They like to be able to get out early. So, anyway, that's my family who's here today. Did I miss anyone? No? Okay. So.
Yeah, so how long have you been here at Foundry Church? And kind of just give us a rundown of... Uh-oh.
You're talking numbers to the person with the tumor again.
Yeah. So you correct. Now, how about you answer this one? How long have you been coming to Foundry Church? And kind of what brought you here? And this is a dovetail onto that. What's been your experience here at part of this church? So wrap all that up.
So Chris's parents had been coming here for longer, but we finally got a chance to move over from Beaverton to Bend in 2010. So it's going on 7 years now. Chris and his family, this is the place that feels like home the most, so it's like coming back home for him, even though Bend is so different now. We actually started out or at least I did not just want to go to Foundry because my in-laws were going here, and so we looked around at some other churches and then ended up here anyway because all of you, your family, it really is. You know, we're dysfunctional, we're scared, we're arrogant, you know, the whole gamut of everything, but it's family, and that's what family really is that you hang out and get together just because you're family, and you get what you get. And we loved that, so we stayed, because church is people, not a building, so that's why we stayed here.
When we first started going here, it was still called First Baptist, and literally that first Sunday where we were here together as a family, because when we first moved over to Bend, Sarah was working weekends at that time still, and so she wasn't able to attend church. But the first time she was here, Mark literally turned around and said, "Hey, we're starting a young adults group." And at that time, you know, that wasn't too long after the church plant, and so a lot of the people our age had left and gone to the church plant, and so there was quite a lack of energy and so forth, and Mark was really working hard to pull younger people in, and that was the Evanses were kind of the cornerstone of that age group. And shortly after, the Scotts started coming, a handful of other young families, and we got plugged into the Sunday school group fairly quickly that Mark was putting together, and I begged to be able to teach a class, and he made sure I was not a heretic, barely, and put me
Blind leading the blind right there. Yeah.
he made sure I wasn't a heretic, and then put me in charge of leading a Bible study methods class, which I love teaching, and kind of just his and I's relationship developed out of that time, and neither one of us were expecting it, but it just kind of all of a sudden happened where I got a tremendous new friend and a wonderful church family and lots of opportunity for growth and lots of opportunity for just meeting new people, and became part of the family.
Yeah, and I remember all that. That's quite the time. And it's been a rocking journey for you personally, because you asked me to just recap this so we don't belabor it. But Chris here has spent the last almost 15 plus years, and after you guys got married, so you guys met in Bible college, whirlwind, crazy story of romance, which we got the chance to hear.
She told me she could never love me.
Yeah. And then 6 months later, when she begs for you back, you're like, how you like me now?
She thought it was okay.
I dig his chili.
And so after you guys got married, and you guys were starting your careers, Chris as a law enforcement, and I don't remember what you were.
I was going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, yeah. But Chris started having around that point chronic, intense migraines, debilitating migraines, and you've had them on and off, well, mostly on, for the past 15 years. I think your longest one you told me was like an 18-month migraine. Yeah. So a large portion of Chris and my, of the time we've known each other, you've actually been inside a dark room for weeks and even months at a time sometimes, just unable to even function in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I refer to it as having lots of free time and access to the internet.
Yeah.
That's not good, by the way.
And I've had like migraines a couple times with just baby ones, and I can't, and it just like shuts me down. I can't even imagine what a decade and a half long migraine feels like. But that's been his story and his life struggle up until this point, and for both of you, for your whole family, because Sarah, you're having to deal with a oftentimes absent husband, and not just absent, but needing care. And so you had all the struggles of being a single mom, but also extra challenges of having to be his caretaker at times.
Right, and switching from being a stay-at-home mom mentality to being a full-time working mom, and I was homeschooled growing up, and so this whole idea of, well, of course we're going to homeschool our kids, and I'm going to get to be home, and we're going to raise our kids to love Jesus, and it's going to be perfect, and then it's like, well, what's happening? This isn't perfect, and I'm working, and the kids are going to public school, and what's going on here? And dealing with a lot of, for both of us, feeling a lot of guilt that we weren't living the Christian life the way we were supposed to as Bible college graduates. And it was a journey of, I was a second-year senior. I'm still a second-year senior. But this whole journey has been to learn God puts us where He wants us, and that we are precious and loved by Him, and that can be just as much in a one-bedroom apartment day after day after day, and not seeing very many people, as being out and teaching and speaking and stuff, and that shift of what a good Christian life, what a successful Christian life can be.
So with that being said, and life is throwing curveball after curveball at you guys, and working through this. I mean, I've ever since I've known you, obviously I've known you for 3 years, right on 3 years, with both of you, and you know, I saw a little bit of you, and it was nice big spurts. You know, you'd come in and sit for an hour, hour and a half, and we'd have some good conversations, but then it would be months before I see you with these headaches. So that takes us up to April, the beginning of April this year. And so why don't you walk us through that month up till the diagnosis and tell us a little bit about that, so we kind of have a framework here.
We didn't realize that something different was going on until I actually saw him having a seizure. But basically, the month of April was hellish. I don't use that word very often, but it was a hellish month of. We just thought the migraines had gotten super more painful, and this was the new norm, and it was really frightening. And basically, I didn't sleep for more than 2 hours at a time. He slept for maybe like 15 minutes at a time, for a total of like an hour and a half per night, days on end. So we were a little loopy and just wondering what is going on. And there you go. It was hellish.
Just because of the pain.
The pain, yeah, that was, when you go to the emergency room and they say, okay, what's your pain level? 1 being, you know, nothing hardly at all, 10 being worst pain of your life. It was level 10 pain. We picked up this headache. I thought it was just a normal headache, but it was unbelievably bad. Level 10 pain for the entire month of April. I've had level 10 headaches before, but they last for a day and a half. This was one day after another, and just could do nothing but sit and moan in pain for hours on end. I mean, it hurt so bad that I mean, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I lost about 50 pounds in April from just not eating and the nausea and so forth. You know, when you're 400 pounds, you really don't care how you lose 50 pounds, but that's still not a good way to lose 50 pounds. So, but yeah, it was a horrific month, and we just thought it was the new normal, and lost a lot of hope. We were desperately afraid that was the new normal. For the last 15 years, even though these headaches have encroached more and more and more, there was always some ability to cope. There was always some ability to think, all right, this headache that I have right now is going to break. Maybe it's going to take another month, but it's going to break. But that headache never once even eased on its pain. And horrific. It's the kind of thing where if we didn't know what was going on now, looking back, the trauma of it would have been debilitating. You know, I mean, I literally, my beard is grayer as a result of it. You know, horrific is the only way.
So then you end up, then you end up in the ER finally, or the hospital, and they do an MRI?
Well, so the third trip to the ER, because by the second time they said, don't come back. We can't help you with the pain. You're just going to have to wait it out. We're like, okay. And finally on May 1st, and my mom and sister were visiting to help me build a fence. It was a horrible night, and he got stuck on the floor, and Ron Wilson came with a couple of his friends, and a neighbor came to help him off the floor and get him back into his chair, and I turned around helping him with that and saw him having a seizure, and I said, it doesn't matter if it's the same headache or whatever, this, I can't take care of them like this. We're going to the hospital again. And when we got there, finally they took just a CT scan and said, we found a mass. We're like, really? Well, that's great. There's something wrong.
Let me interject right here, because that was the culmination of a 15-year journey, and I want to touch on the spiritual aspect of this for a while, because I've walked with you for several years of that. What, as a person who grew up in church and went to Bible school and was aspiring to be a missionary and was worked as a youth pastor for some time, and then got hit by this physical condition. Over 15 years, what did that do to your, what did your spiritual journey, what did your relationship with God look like after a decade and a half of that?
Horrible. I've been interviewed a couple of times up here. You know, I figured you guys would be tired of hearing about this in certain chambers by now, but it's up to you. If you keep coming, we keep coming. Those headaches destroyed every dream and plan that we ever had. And over the course of that time, I was also trying so hard to, what's the word? Make myself holier. You know, I was trying to be a good Christian. I was trying to love God more. I was trying to be more obedient and do the things you're supposed to do as a Christian. You know, read your Bible and pray more. And contentment fled the harder I tried. And I got further and further away. And I was trying so hard to be content with what God chose to give. And so God chose to give me all these headaches. And there were these fleeting moments of contentment. I can remember when Sarah had surgery one time. She got an infection. We had to go back into the hospital. And it was Sunday morning actually, and I was standing in her room looking out the window of her room here at St. Charles, and I had this overwhelming sense of contentment. That one morning lasted a few minutes. But as I was trying to holify myself, if I can invent a word, please, what I could pray for, what I thought I could pray for, just shrunk and shrunk. Because holy people don't pray about these silly things, they pray about being holy. And I forgot that, you know, Moses often prayed things like, God, I hate you, I hate the Jews, I hate what you're making me do, I hate the fact that I'm here, I hate this, it's hot, you know, I completely forgot about all that. And how honest you can be with God, because He already knows all that. But I wasn't thinking that, I was thinking holy people like Chuck Swindoll, they pray to stoke the fires of our passion, Lord. And so I thought that's what I had to do. And when you start editing your prayers, you start running out of stuff to pray for real quick. Because it's not on your heart, it's not part of what is who you are and what God's doing in your life. And so contentment just fled further and further away. And it was just not there. Is that what you do?
And that's the struggle that I've known you experiencing for a large part of the years we've been together. We spent hours together and just talking about how we're doing, and Chris would say, there's no point. What hope do I have? And that Chris was the one who his physical condition culminated in April. Can I ask you the same question, Sarah? What this did to your walk with God over the course of these years?
He taught me a lot about where my value comes from, because I thought it came from having a successful life, and I didn't view our life as very successful. And he taught me that he loves me actually through needing to serve Chris and my kids, and that taking over my whole life. And so the thought process turned from me being super angry at God. This whole morning and last night I was thinking about the very end of the book of Jonah in the Old Testament, where Jonah, I identified with Jonah when he was saying, God, I knew this was going to happen. I knew you were going to be forgiving of the Ninevites, because I know you. You're gracious and you're compassionate, and You relent from sending calamity, and it just makes me want to die. It's just so sick. And I was as angry as Jonah, and God started to teach me that the only way I was going to be able to actually keep living and not destroy my family was to realize that He really valued Chris and the kids, and sent me to serve them specifically, and I didn't need to serve anybody else. That was my focus right there. And as much as God valued them in giving them me, my whole life, whatever I could do, that was how much God loved me. And so I could see as He loved them that He loved me that much. So it helped me to finally, a couple, 3 or 4 years ago, let go of most of the anger. And, you know, I don't want to trust you, God, because I know what you're like. You're going to allow more pain in my life, and I'm just tired of it. He is good and gracious, and that's something that no matter what else is going on, is always true. He is always gracious. I can depend on Him being loving and gracious and taking me through whatever. And so it actually ended up I think it made my relationship with God a lot more real rather than superficial or, you know, not able to deal with difficult things as much.
So while she's experiencing this inner growth and development, you're still this big spiritual, hot, fat mess.
Thanks for that, Mark. Remember, Mark loves you. He doesn't care.
Okay, so walk us into the emergency room that April.
So it's actually May the 1st. May the 1st. Like Sarah said, Ron Wilson came and rescued me off the floor of my bathroom because yeah, I had fallen several times that day. That headache that we picked up, we thought was a normal headache, a normal routine with a normal headache is you ride it out. You don't medicate, you don't do anything, because then you start chasing rebound headaches, and it's a pattern we've learned to avoid over 15 years. And it was just so bad, and then the seizure, which I still cannot recognize. I did not realize I was having seizures, because, you know, they're happening to me. I'm not losing time, I'm not understanding what's going on. She is the one who sees me have the seizure. And I don't think I've had one, but I trust her. And so, but I've been having them for weeks at that point.
He listened to me when I said, I want you to go to the hospital.
That, yeah, literally, I didn't want to have a fight. I didn't want to, I just didn't want to argue. And by that point, I was exhausted. I had fallen 2 or 3 dozen times that day due to the seizures. I thought I was just off balance from an anti-nausea medicine that I had been prescribed.
So then you go, they scan you.
They scan me. When the doctor comes in and says, okay, we saw something on the CT scan, you got to understand, I've had dozens of both CAT scans and MRIs over the last 15 years of each. Okay, I mean, that alone, maybe that's what's giving me the tumors that much in here.
It's radiation.
So, I mean, just dozens of each of those types of scans. For 15 years, there's been nothing, not a thing. And then the doctor comes in and says, you either have had a stroke or you have a tumor. And we were like, really? You're kidding? Wow! Yeah, it was the best news I have ever heard.
Because for the first time you had a reason.
For the first time, there was a reason for the way I was feeling. You know, I mean, for 15 years, clear CAT scans, why you have headaches, we don't know. Nothing we could do about the headaches, and there you go.
You had said that it had been so long, and people kept telling people you had headaches with no physical proof, that people had even started thinking that you were lying or lazy.
Oh, yeah.
or something like they didn't even believe that you were having?
Yeah, oh yeah, no, people in my own family.
Which
would-
one?
Not here. And I won't rat them out.
So, I come into this situation on May 1st. I'm not sure if it's May 1st or not, but sometime between the time that they knew there was something in the actual diagnosis, and I remember the relief that you experienced. I remember the giddiness that you had, and I remember sitting there.
That was also the steroids.
Well, yes, there's a lot of stuff going on that day, but I remember Bobby D'Agostino was there, and your parents were sitting there, and I remember a doctor's, a nurse's aide, or a nurse or someone coming in, and he's standing there, and you said something to the effect of, "Well, you can just get this thing cut out, right?" And I remember seeing the guy's eyes and watching him, and the way he said it, the way he came back and said, "Well, we need to, that's what the doctor's going to have to come in and tell you more about it." I remember seeing his eyes and thinking, this isn't necessarily something they're going to be able to just cut out. So you have this relief.
Let me say this real
Okay.
quick based on that. The technical term that they kept using to describe the size of the tumor at that time was huge.
Huge. No,
Huge.
silent H. Huge.
Huge.
So-
Huge.
So you have the giddiness and the relief and all of that. When you actually get the diagnosis, kind of just quickly walk us through that, this what the diagnosis was, and did that giddiness change? What was the feeling after you knew what the diagnosis was?
Okay, so we know that God loves me because I was diagnosed on May the 4th. I'm a huge nerd, and there's a holiday, May the 4th be with you.
There's 5 people here that appreciate it.
You are my friends, the rest of you. May the 4th be with you. So, anyway, May the 4th is when I actually had the biopsy, and that's the scar from it right there. So I get the diagnosis, and the diagnosis is literally, if we treat, maybe a year of survival. The type of cancer is called glioblastoma multiforme. It is 100% fatal in everyone. There are a few people where if you get every little break going your way, you can get out to about 10 years. Again, very few people. It is the same type of brain cancer that Senator McCain was just diagnosed with. Beau Biden, former Vice President Joe Biden's son, also got it, and Ted Kennedy. So 100% completely terminal. There is nothing they can do. The few things that they can do, most of them they couldn't do. 85% of my tumor was not even reachable by surgery. So we knew when we got the year average lifespan that I wasn't going to make that. Just not resectable at all, et cetera, et cetera.
So the diagnosis was fatal.
The diagnosis
100%.
is fatal, 100%. You're going
And
to.
so when you get that news,
What happens?
Yes, you got.
Well, the actual May the 4th, which is when Sarah is the one who told me, I had this kind of half a heartbeat long grunt, about like this. And she was on the phone with me. And
Told him on the phone.
So his parents and I got to see him after his surgery. He was in ICU. Turns out when they cut open your brain for anything, they put you in ICU to make sure you're doing okay after that. And so the 3 of us had got to go in and say hi, and he was, his fun, loopy self after, the anesthesia and stuff. And we knew, because the surgeon had told us ahead of time, it's terminal, and we've got about a year, hopefully. And so we had a little bit of time to process, but we're holding it together. We were trying to be cheerful and upbeat for him, and then we all went home, and I realized at like 11 o'clock that night, oh my gosh, it's almost not May 4th anymore. I need to call him right now. So I quit calling him. I've got something that I need to tell you. He's like, oh yeah, great. I don't have very much time to tell you. May the 4th be with you. He's like, oh, okay, great. And by the way, you're dying. and that was it at that point. He was good with that.
Literally, I had that grunt of, and the first thought I had was, I mean, it's not the bad food choices I've made over the last 10 years. You know, everyone looks at me and just assumes this guy's going to die of diabetes, a heart attack. I mean, 400 pounds is 400 pounds. That's a death sentence, right? You know. What you don't understand is this body is a remarkable demonstration of restraint. You have any idea how much ice cream I have not eaten at 10 o'clock at night? You know why I'm 400 pounds? Because I'm not 500 pounds. Anyway, that night, I get the news, okay, I'm going to die. And my first thoughts are, we do need to treat. I need the time, not so that way there's more life that I could live, but I really wanted the time specifically to say goodbye to my family, repair some relationships, especially with my son. He and I have been at just button heads for the last 3 years. He's autistic, high functioning. The most high functioning autistic one you'll ever meet is the way he likes to look. You know, I wanted to spend time repairing those relationships. And then, I'm not sure how to answer that.
Well, the thing that there's no hope of earthly survival with what you have. And so that takes that piece of this puzzle out of it. So there's not a 5% chance, there's nothing to cling to here. How has that focused you on what our real hope is? And what we stand up here and talk about, but is so focused for you at this point in time, real for you, what do you want to tell us about this journey? Because this is not something we get to do every day, is to walk with somebody who's, thank you so much for being so open with us and allowing us to walk into this journey with you and to see the raw parts of it. So what do you want to tell us about that? About the gospel, what that means in this moment?
When I woke up May the 5th, the perspective of I have to make myself holier. I have to whatever do these things in order to be holier. All of that was just gone, along with a whole lot of worry and fear. I woke up with this sense of joy, peace, and freedom that I was in no way, shape, or form capable of choosing on my own to do. Literally. That morning I woke up having been transformed by the Spirit of God. I made no choice to be content. I made no choice to feel freedom from my sins, from the wrongs that people, especially you, have committed against me. I love you. And there were literally no choices have I made regarding my own holiness, regarding my own sense of well-being, my perspective. It is entirely a work that Jesus has done in me, overriding. It has reinforced my Calvinistic tendencies, actually, because this is not something I was capable of doing. Mark knows the guy who went into the hospital, and he knows that guy died May before. Already long dead. I mean, ask Mark the difference between the two. That I think, does that answer what you're asking?
Yeah. So with that being said, you've got a further diagnosis since then. They've looked at the radiation, how that affected you, and so they have said you have 3 to 5 months. So it's a little shorter than what we were saying. We wanted to have you come up here, and he was going to actually preach for us one time, but it's just, what's that?
So the May 5th or May the 6th, Mark comes to visit me as a way of getting out and going to Manland. And we talked through, and I had a theological breakthrough, if you will, on one particular aspect of love. And Mark's sermon last Sunday was about half of what we talked about that day. So he stole half of my sermon. And now
That's my sermon.
now it is because he's got to finish it. So
But with that being said, we wanted you to be able to tell us what you want us to know as you're walking this path. So with that being said, I know Mark's got some notes there. We want to hear what you want to tell us, what you want to tell your families. Because once you start to debilitate a little bit more, it just gets more difficult and more difficult. And so we want to hear what you want us to hear from your experience, what God has you going through. So
questions.
You had mentioned, I said last week that Jesus knows you, and that is love. How do we show love to each other? And what you understand, how do we show love to each other?
In the same way that Jesus knows us, we need to let people know us, the rest of people. So Jesus loves us, knows us. We have to let each other know who we are. So I have to let Mark know all the things that I'm ashamed to let anybody else know in order for me to love him better. Because if I'm hiding these things from him, then I am not truly loving him in the way that Jesus does. Because Jesus shows us everything about him. We see in the garden, before the fall, we see Adam and Eve completely unashamed of who they are. It isn't until after the fall that they are ashamed. But what's really interesting is it isn't even after the fall, after they've sinned, God still comes into the garden looking for them. He has not yet forsaken, if you will, them. He's still looking for them. And they are hiding from him. So where this really comes down to is there have been people who have wronged friends of mine. And I have hidden from them how angry I was about how they've hurt my friends. Because I felt that to tell them, hey, I'm mad, would be unloving. Well, it's the exact opposite. Being genuine, saying, you know, I'm really upset about this. This bothers me. That's the beginning of it. I'm not trying to unwrap the whole conundrum of love and how we do it and get rid of things like, you know, the 7 love languages and love and respect. Those are all good things. But where we start with love is by first of all being open and honest about how I'm feeling, about every aspect, and not hiding from anyone those aspects of me that I'm even ashamed to admit to myself. Because if I'm doing that, then there's no genuineness, there's fear. And what do we know about fear? It drives out love. But if you flip that around, love can drive out the fear, fear can drive out hope. All right? You gotta be honest with who you are, with everyone, if you expect to love them. Because if you're hiding it, you're not loving it.
We talked about a lot that first night. I remember that there were a lot of tears, a lot of passion. So it's something that God has really opened up in your heart and your mind. We hide behind our walls, and we consider our good-natured friendship, consider that love. we say it here, and I think you're really opening it up, is that we really can't love each other unless we know each other. Love you in the way that you need to be loved, and allow you to respond to me unless you know what's really going on inside who I really am. And the wonderful thing is that as believers, because we have Christ, there's no reason to fear. There's no reason to fear the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment, because Christ has taken all that, and He is our strength, and He is accomplishing good, and He has power. Thank you so much for the encouragement, Chris.
Let me ask you one thing here. You're going through this, and the doctors are right. In 3 to 5 months, you'll be with Jesus. And at least according to them, you'll be dead.
Yeah.
Right? Is Jesus real?
Unbelievably. I was talking with my mom last night about this, actually. There's one person on this planet who I'm struggling to forgive. And that joy, that peace, that freedom has freed me from so many different things that I've been upset with over the years. But there's one person who I'm struggling to forgive. And yesterday, it was actually with Mike and Aaron Munsterman. They were over visiting, and was able to talk through with them. And they really helped me a lot with understanding this. But the long and short of it is, Jesus is still extremely active in sanctifying me here and now before I die. And that was a surprise. I thought, I've got 3 months, not a lot left to do in that time, right? No, there's still work going on that He's doing that I can feel, of sanctification, not just this joy, peace, and freedom stuff I've been feeling, which has been obviously Him doing it. But never in my life has Jesus been more real, more obvious, and more overwhelming in my thoughts and hopes and day-to-day just activity when I'm not taking a nap, obviously. I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, of course He's real. There's just, how could He not be? I'm not capable of feeling these things. The only thing I'm capable of feeling is rage and arrogance and superiority. Ask Him. He's been there with me when I'm feeling those things. I'm not capable of feeling this. How can He not be real if this is what's happening in my heart?
My last question would be, for those of us out here who are in the midst of something, there's something going on in life that's difficult, it's hard. For someone that is very, and we don't know how close we are to the presence of God. Where all of us are terminal. We just don't know what the end game is going to be. You have the unique perspective of knowing more than likely what's going to happen. So with that being said, for those of us in here that may be struggling, does Jesus love us? I know this sounds basic, but just for those of us, for someone that's so close, it has more weight to it.
Is that a fat joke?
No, it wasn't. I'm not him.
There is nothing but love out of Jesus. I can get pretty short-sighted with regard to how excited I am to go to heaven. And my poor family has to keep dealing with, all right, I'm going to die soon. And, most parents don't think that way. And so they've had to deal with my insensitivity to the fact that they're going to be grieving, they're going to be mourning, same thing with Sarah. But everything He does is because He loves us. the difficult burdens that we all face and hate are good things for us. He is a good, good Father. And I am loved by Him. It is who I am. There's just no two ways about it. This death is wonderful, not just to me, but to everyone. Hard, painful for some, not for me, but for some, incredibly difficult and painful. But the most loving thing that He can do is take me home. And it's the most loving thing He can do for me, for Sarah, for my children, for my friends. And that may not be something that people identify with, because they get very caught up in those moments of, well, I don't want you to go. That's going to be lame. I'm going to miss you. It's going to hurt. But it's also the reason why I've been very upset at people who want to pray for my total healing. It's like, you want me to not go to heaven? Do you not understand that's where Jesus is? You know, that's where we're made to be. And the feeling of let's take Him away from that is, why would you take that away from me? You know, why? It's like taking a balloon away from a 2-year-old.
Well, let me just say this. Thank you so much, guys, for letting us walk with you through this, and for your openness, and for your openness. And, I mean, I've been at your house a lot over the last couple weeks. I'm going to be there, and you want us there till we can't be there with you anymore. We're going to be. And I want you to know that. We love you guys so much, and we're going to be with you, and we're going to be with your family through this thing. And we love you guys so much, and I can't thank you enough for your friendship and for just letting me get a glimpse of your. So thank you so much.
Just one last question I have for the rest of us. You told, when we talked to you last week, so there's something that you want in your last few months from us, and there's lots of things you don't want. You don't want the condolences, you don't want the well wishes, or what can I do for you, or anything like that. What is the best thing that we can give you?
Time with you. Time with you. It isn't about, at this point in my life, you know, the only thing that matters is you. And it's the people. You know, Jim Hildebrand, hi. I'm sorry. Sorry. I get distracted very easily. That's why he's got cue cards for me. It's time with you, the family. My closest relatives on earth are you. And I want to spend the time I have with you. I don't want to spend it at home watching Netflix, you know? I mean, it's just not interesting. It's all stuff that's not going with me. You don't want to go in with me, just a little bit later. Okay? That's what I want. Literally, to the very, very end. When they say he died at home, surrounded by friends and family, that's what I want. That's what I want. Nothing else. Just you. Liar. I want to declare victory on Mark because I am the only one who's gotten him to cry for more than about 10 seconds in the last 30 years of his life.
That's all I got. I love you, Chris. Sarah, I love you too. Your family. There's a lot of logistics and things to pray about and all the stuff that's going to be happening over the next few months. We're just going to try to be there with you as you go. and your family afterwards. So as long as God has us together. Amen.